the final level, level 33. With Q and QDG, we can make conditional operations that are more interesting than just the control Z and the control X. Maybe we're going to talk about a control Y, and that's kind of, I think, going to help us close the overall picture of what's going on with these control gates, and like a one that does an H to the one qubit, conditional on the control Hadamard. Oh, really? Oh, I'm a bit deceived, but let's see. Qubit 1 on this chip has a bunch of broken gates. So you may need to create one of these. Target, turn off the blue boxes using the allowed gates. So let's zoom out a little bit. So turn off the blue boxes using the allowed gates. Basically, I can use QDG for qubit 1 just once, and Q also just once, and then for 0 I can use basically everything, and then I have a control Z. So, and I gotta turn the whole thing off. Now for qubit 1, I don't have a Hadamard, right? So I think that's a trick, because if I do a Hadamard, then I would be done. Because basically here we have the second dimension is empty, so I would just like move that here and would be done. In order to do that, right, I would need sort of the third dimension that we cannot see here. That's kind of, again, my suspicion, right? Basically need to fill that up somehow. So usually, I mean, the control Z is interpreted as swapping those two boxes here. So if I am able to fill, how would I do that? So I would basically have to bring that here somehow else. So if I do, and the control in the bit Q0, I can do whatever I want, right? So at some point with the control Z, I can swap those things, but I don't know how is that going to help me. And basically that's all, right? So, but I can do an X. Maybe I see. I can do an X. I can do an X on qubit 1 as well, right? So if I manage to fill this up, then I can basically okay, so if I manage to fill this up, then I can basically switch it off, right? And then we're done. And what I can do on qubit 1 is I can do QDG and Q just once. I see. That's probably then the way that we have to use it is use QDG and Q. So it's like once we fill up the second dimension, then we can use QDG or Q once to fill that up completely. That is probably what we should be doing, maybe actually both somehow. So I need to get that one filled up first. In order to do that, I'm gonna do an X on 0, so I get that filled up, and now I have these here. Cool. So now I know that if I do a control Z, that goes all here. That's perfect. I like that. And what happens now if I do QDG on the qubit 1? Yeah, I good. So I filled it up almost, right? Now I cannot use Q, because if I use Q, so let me just do Bloch just to visualize where the X is. But I think because if I do now, so let me show you. I'm gonna do Bloch on 1, right? So the little star is here. So if I do Q now, I'm gonna actually empty the blue one, and I don't want that. Let me unblock that. It's just unblock and block. Great way of naming that operation. So what I want to do now what I want to do now is I want to almost empty that, right? So, and I see that I have this is almost empty here. So if I do a Control Z, another Control Z, now, bam, we have it. So now I kind of swap this again. So now if I show you block one, right? So now you see that because I've done this, the little star is over here. So I know that if I do a Q now, I'm going to completely fill it up. Yeah, that was easier than expected. Easier than expected block. And I think that's because I finally got to understand basically what's happening here. There's just one thing that I don't like, which is the thinking of those two. Like I'll come to this right in a second. So let me do now. I'm gonna do a Q on one, and we have it. Perfect. So now we can do an X on one, and it's off, and we can do an X and zero, and we have one. Perfect. So um, just to close that chapter in general of the whole game. So I think it's a pretty cool way of learning, and I've at the end of the day, it's been I think the second half of the levels have been a bit um, frustrating to some extent because I had to concentrate much on actually getting those things off without so it didn't feel like I was learning anything. But now at the end of the day, once you get the gist of using those operations, you can stop and think. And then so what I've learned is that basically what you see in here, let me just see if I can get the color. So what you basically see here, right here and here, so those are the two qubits, and those are two dimensions of the qubits. Now my guess is there's sort of another dimension here, right, um, which basically gives you another circle here and another circle here, right? And at the end of the day, the stuff in the middle, right? I'm gonna change color, maybe blue. So the stuff that's here in the middle, right? It's not really. This is not really space for information. It's not really you can just. It's not that you can like it's not information you can easily manipulate. It basically describes. It helps you understand it. It describes the correlations between the different dimensions of the qubits, and so it is needed. So that information is needed because it really tells it really tells you how those correlations are working. But I find it confusing that we define a Control Z by saying we're swapping between those two, when probably what's actually happening is that it's there's an information exchange between dimension 2 and 3, maybe, right? Because at the end of the day, as we can see, only one dimension can be totally certain, or at least that's what it seems. So basically that was a bit confusing, but I think I'm not far away from the actual truth, as in that's what's happening, right? So also to answer the question of what's wrong with the Control Z, that the question that comes up if you take a look at the game, at the app. So that's basically what I would imagine. So I think that's pretty good. I'm super happy. Let me clean that up. See if I can just can I just erase everything? Perfect. So you know basically that's what the whole thing boils down to. I'm really happy. I think I got it. And now I can sort of um, sleep on this and see whether I can make sort of a generic learnings video out of all that, because I think that's also going to be important for me to try to formulate and articulate what I think that I've learned, that helps me learn at the same time. Uh, so perfect.